Okay, we'll call to order our planning commission meeting here tonight, August 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. We'll do a roll call first.
Mr. Dumfries?
Here.
Mr. Mahonson?
Here.
Mr. Sarah?
Can you speak up a little bit?
Mr. Sarah?
Present.
Mr. Volas? Mr. LePage?
Present.
All right, the first item on the agenda tonight is the submission of the April 6, 2022 meeting minutes for approval. At this time, I would entertain a motion on that.
Move to approve the minutes of April 6, 2022.
Second. A motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote on this, please?
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Mahonson?
Yes.
Mr. Dumfries?
Abstain. Okay, the next item on the agenda is submit the June 1st, 2022 meeting minutes for approval. I would like some motion that we postpone these until our next meeting due to Mr. Wallace's absence, and we only had 3 members at the last meeting. So I would have motion to postpone.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. Mahonson?
Yes.
Mr. Dumfries?
Yes. Okay, next item on the agenda is an adjudication hearing. This is application number 22 NCPC-0008, Wolpert Inc., 1445 North Main Street, North Canton, Ohio, 44720. The conditional use permit for a gasoline station accessory to retail on a parcel larger than 5 acres in the MS-NG zoning district. This is in accordance with Ordinance 24-2022. At this time, I would like to pass this over to Mr. Boyer.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Eric. On this note, I wanted, because it's been a while since we've done an adjudication hearing, I kind of wanted to explain the difference between the adjudication hearing and our hearing that's coming later in the public meeting realm, because it's been a bit and because the rules are different. So from an adjudication hearing perspective, it's a closed hearing to general public comment. It's treated like a court hearing, basically, in essence. So the hearing is run by a hearing examiner. Mr. Delpez asked if I could do so, so I'd be happy to do that. Again, individuals that want to speak are going to be sworn in like a witness. They're going to come up and the court reporter has asked that each of you spell your names. When you announce your names, please spell your names out for the court reporter so she can put those down. Ultimately, once you're sworn in and you begin testimony, please keep in mind that the testimony has to be fact-based. It's like a court hearing. Fact-based has nothing to do with opinions, nothing to do with whether you do or do not support the underlying development. It has everything to do with the facts related specifically to this conditional use permit. So you will be speaking as to facts, which typically are supported by some sort of, reports or some sort of knowledge that you have, not always supported by report, but typically done so. But ultimately, each of you are going to be sworn in, each of you are going to be giving your testimony. You are subject to cross-examination, both from the hearing examiner and also from counsel for the applicant if they so choose. And then the planning commission members will also be asking questions when they deem fit. And so ultimately, when we get through the adjudication hearing, once all the witnesses that have been sworn in and wish to be fact witnesses choose to speak, the planning commission will go through the process of voting whether or not to approve or deny the application for the conditional use permit. At that time, we will transition to the public meeting aspect of it for the general development review of the Meyer development as a whole. And at that time, it's going to be more like a traditional meeting that we'd have with planning commission, where everybody would have a certain amount of time to come up and basically opine as to whether or not they agree, disagree, why that is. That can be more speculative, that can be more personal in nature. But I would like to reiterate that during the adjudication hearing, please limit any comments once you're sworn in to things that are fact-based in nature and not speculative or opinion-based. That said, I think we can get going there. So ultimately, is there someone from the applicant that would like to make a presentation concerning the conditional use permit? Podium, work there.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Jones, and I'm the court reporter this week. I'm Kristen Jones, Senior Real Estate Manager for Meyer, and 2350.
Put your hands. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the cause will be true?
2350 3 Mile Road, Grand Rapids, Michigan. The zip code is right on.
I can barely hear. I'm only 10 feet away here. Can you speak up?
Yeah, I would just have my back to it. Our gas station is proposed on North Main Street, and we'll go through a couple of the slides. It's 3,376 square feet. It's in the lower right on your screen there. Has 6 dispensers. It has, if I could read the number, I believe 18 parking spaces. And it's just south of Bergen. The site location map indicates the location of the gas station just east of the white roof. If anybody has any questions, I can point to it more specifically. It is the vacant parcel south of Burger King on North Main Street.
One question, Mr. Jones. As to the way the outline is on the map, it seems to indicate that it's a separate and distinct parcel. Is it part of the larger development as a whole, or is it a distinct parcel in and of itself?
Part of the larger parcel.
Thank you, sir.
It don't have a distinct address, but it is part of the larger parcel. That's it. Slide you see now up on the screen has a daytime view on the left-hand side at the top and a nighttime view on the right. And then all 4 sides of the building are shown, front, side, or both sides and rear.
We do this together. Yes. I'm Lonnie West with Wolbert. This is 1203 Walnut Street, Cincinnati, Ohio.
I'm just going to object to the extent that none of this was part of the, Chris Swing on behalf of Albrecht Incorporated, Acme Fresh Market, Ross McDowell is the law firm I'm with. None of this was part of the application packet that was provided to council upon request from the city. None of this was part of the original application, so I'm going to object to any further testimony about stuff that wasn't part of the application to begin with.
So noted. Please continue.
You swear the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be true. Yeah, the only thing I want to add to this is the materials on the building. It is PFAS
concrete wall that's painted and imprinted with scoring to add, architecture and aesthetics to the building. It also has a raised canopy that brings light into the entrance of the building.
And that's what you can see just above the word Meyer. That protrudes above the canopy.
It has 12 fueling stations, one on either side of the 6 islands that are proposed in the development. Really? Sorry. That's a zoomed up view of the convenience store gas station in the upper right. You can see the access point is the same access point that exists. There is a service drive that comes behind the store that actually goes straight up towards Stratavon. And that's where basically all the mainline utility extensions are going to be coming from, although the gas station will have water off of Main Street, and the sewer will be from behind the street. And of course, gas, electric, and telephone will probably be front. Those are still being formatted.
Mr. Boyer, that's our presentation on the gas station.
Well, let me go over the point for conditional approval that the planning commission has to review
Yes, ma'am.
as part of the approval. So I think I'll just read statements regarding A through M of section 114502, which the planning commission has to consider when they review the conditional approval. A, the Meyer M Express gas station convenience store will match or provide enhancement to the character of the adjacent retail businesses along North Main Street. Its location will provide a second gas station in the North Main Street district and also be the first one on the west side of the street. B, the Express will enhance the value of the area businesses as it will replace the existing service parking lot that previously served the recently raised Kmart. C, the existing adjacent businesses, Burger King and McDonald's, are not restricted or adversely affected by the development. Access will remain intact. The presence of the M Express may attract business to them. E, the design and construction of the M Express development, including its associated drives and points of access to public right-of-way, are in compliance with the regulations in Chapter 1153 of the city zoning code. We've made several modifications to this point and believe we are in compliance. E, the express site will meet Stark County soil and water, stormwater runoff requirements. We're actually proposing a regional stormwater detention just north of Stratavon. Final plans and reports shall be submitted for approval prior to final permits to Stark County Soil and Water, and of course the city. The M Express site will be landscaped in accordance with Chapter 1155, and our landscaping plan that you see does meet those requirements, but we're welcome to comments from the city. F, the express site will be landscaped. Oh, that's the same one I just did. G is the construction, maintenance, and operation of the M Express site will not be detrimental to or endanger public health or the safety or general welfare of the public. H, the hours of operation of the M Express will be similar to the hours of operation of the BP gas station right across the street at 1406 West Main Street, which has hours of 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. Meyer will probably be 5 a.m. to 12 p.m. However, they reserve the right to change that to possibly a 24-hour store later. Typically, Meyer stores are 24-hour stores, so they reduced those hours because of COVID. But once the economy changes, they may decide to increase their hours. The existing businesses around the M Express, Burger King, and McDonald's will not be impeded by the proposed M Express development. Access to them will remain intact, now actually probably also be enhanced because there will be several ways now to get to Burger King. J, proposed utilities, sanitary, water, electric, gas, and communication services, access roads and drainage, storm drainage structures to collect and convey the storm sewer, which will discharge to the offsite regional stormwater management basin, will be provided for the M Express site. K, access drives to the Express site are proposed for city requirements, for ingress and egress, for customers and delivery vehicles. L, the proposed M Express development will be constructed, maintained, and managed in such a way to minimize the need for additional public facilities such as police and fire. There will be no effect on public schools. M, the proposed M Express development is compatible with the surrounding uses, so hardships to the existing adjacent uses are not anticipated. So those are the items that the Planning Commission was to review. If you have any questions, we're open to entertaining.
May it please the commission. Mr. Boyer, I'd like to cross-examine the witness or witnesses.
Under what theory?
Under what theory?
Yeah.
It's an administrative proceeding. It's an administrative proceeding.
Why would you have standing
We're-
to cross?
We're within 200 feet of the project. We've been invited here this evening for public notice for an adjudication hearing. It's an administrative proceeding. We have an obligation to make our record right here and right now, and I plan to do that. And so with that, I'm entitled to cross-examine these witnesses to find out what the basis of these opinions are, other than her just saying so, reading it out of the zoning regulation. What's the actual evidence that supports that? So I think I'm perfectly entitled to cross-examine both of these witnesses.
I'll allow you to do so.
All right. So I'd like to know, first of all, your name, please, again.
Lonnie West,
Lonnie, tell me, what is your educational background?
I have a degree in business management as well as civil engineering.
Okay, and can you tell me, you spoke about all of those various conditions in 1145 of the zoning code. Other than you saying that, what evidence have you brought forward this evening to support those conclusory statements?
Well, I've been doing development for over 30 years. I look young, but over 30 years.
With due respect, with regard to this project,
Yeah.
what evidence have you brought forward this evening to support it,
From
other than your opinion?
Right, well, just looking at the area and the development that's around and the use that Meyer brings. We've been working with Meyer for over 35 years, so I'm well aware of their store and what it brings to the community.
Okay, you talked about this being part, and by the way, that's not what was submitted with the application, was it? With the application for conditional use, what we're looking at this evening is far different than what you
All
said.
it is colored.
No, it's different. I have a copy of it. Let me show it to you.
If there's differences, there's slight, but
Excuse
that's
me.
what happens from preliminary to final stage plans.
Just make it one. I'm handing you, ma'am, what's been marked as Exhibit 1. You take a look at that for me?
I've looked at it.
Okay, that's the application, right?
Yeah.
Are you telling me that each of these screens appears in this application?
Like I said, there's this color.
No, there are some other different features than what's there.
Can you show me?
We're not gonna go through page by page, I'm just saying, they're not the same. They're not the same. It's not the same. So let me,
The city of North Canton, I'm objecting, if he wants to cross-examine the witnesses, I think that's entirely appropriate, Chris, that you be given the opportunity to do that. I just would ask that you do it in a civil manner
Well,
and allow her to answer and allow me to complete my objection,
happy to do it.
okay?
Yep.
So, I know this is emotional, but
Nope.
let's do it in a.
No, it's business. So the parcels as they stand presently, there's two separate parcels, right? Development, the gas station and
Excuse me, I could not hear her answer.
the gas station and the
I'm
super.
sorry, I didn't hear her answer.
It is one parcel, approximately 17.3 acres.
You're saying it's one parcel today, as you're standing here today, it's one parcel, that they've been consolidated, that there's been a new recording, that they're now one.
It's proposed as one parcel.
It's proposed as one parcel, but as we're here this evening, they're two separate parcels, correct? They're in the land.
They're, meaning okay, you're asking a different question. As the parcels exist today, you're saying they're two different.
That's the question I asked you, yes, ma'am.
Point of
I
clarification.
don't believe so.
He's asking for two different parcels. Is he saying there's two different parcels? Or is he saying that the gas station parcel and the Meyer store parcel are two separate parcels? What are you saying?
I'm saying, look, if you look at the application, right, take a look at the application. This is the application that Meyer prepared. Permanent parcel number, you'll see one ending in 2584, the other ending in 2582, correct?
So I believe those two parcel lots are one where that existing Kmart development.
As of today, as we sit here today, those are two separate parcels.
When you, excuse me, I want point of clarification. You keep saying those are two separate parcels. What she was trying to tell you is that one parcel is the parcel that was the formerly Kmart store, and the second parcel was the parcel that was formerly Seritage. And if you're saying that the gas station parcel is separate from the Myers parcel, that's incorrect.
The super center parcel will be on 2584, Terry. And do you want to testify? Because if so, we should have you sworn as a witness as well.
I'm acting as counsel, and I'm just trying to get to the
Right.
accurate information.
So the 2584 parcel is the larger parcel. Do you agree?
Well, just to be clear, this is going to be platted.
I understand what's going to happen in the future, ma'am.
Yeah,
As
so
we sit here today, they're two separate parcels, correct?
they're two different parcels that are part of the development,
Thank you.
not necessarily, designated as this parcel is for the gas station and this parcel is for the building.
But the proposed plans that have been submitted, the 2582 parcel is the parcel upon which the gas station will sit, correct?
With other developments.
Do you know?
Well, from my understanding.
It
it's
isn't a
part-
simple yes or no question.
Well, you've submitted preliminary plans. If I direct you to the preliminary plans, can you tell me whether or not, according to the preliminary plans, is the gas station situated on the 2582 parcel? That's my question.
Not entirely.
It's not. What portion of it is not?
Where the existing Kmart was in the past.
What portion of the gas station can sit there?
The entire gas station and its associated parking facility and its canopy are on a portion of the former Kmart.
That's, but let's take a look at the drawings.
Yeah,
May I-
station. Sure.
Okay, you go ahead, show me.
This is for the gas station.
Right.
And it's the parcel includes a portion of this.
Let's get the larger drawing. Then.
Mr. Boyer, is there a point to this, this questioning of which parcel?
I'm waiting to see what that point is.
There is a point, right? So you can't have an accessory use without a principal use. So let's talk about the principal use. Have you submitted any preliminary plans for principal use?
They're
right here.
right here on the,
The
Before
principal
this evening.
use is the Meyer.
they were submitted by the deadline that was required by the planning
Okay,
commission.
but you don't have approval for the principal use,
That's
correct?
the second item on the agenda tonight.
Well, you're not seeking final site plan approval for the Myers, the super center, are you?
It's a site plan approval hearing tonight.
What do you, I'm curious, what do you both know about?
The action that the planning board takes is up to them.
Retail is allowed in this jurisdiction.
You're not seeking final site plan approval this evening, are you?
The finality of it is up to the planning.
You haven't even submitted final site plans, correct?
We made a site plan submission to the city based on their criteria.
And they're preliminary plans. It says preliminary plans on page 1, does it not?
But it's final development plans, and that's not uncommon to create construction documents after that.
A standard
It is.
practice.
I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you whether you have sought final site plan approval for that.
You can see on here, on the application, we are asking for general development site plan approval
That's
and
not,
conditional use.
but that's not on the agenda this evening.
Yeah.
The final site plan approval's on the agenda this evening?
On the
Mr. Ward?
agenda this evening,
Final site plan.
after we get through the conditional use permit, whether or not that's approved or denied, then we move on to the general development.
Okay, so the final site plan doesn't have any geotechnical information in it, does it?
It's not required by the city.
Okay.
We have final.
So where- Is there any engineering, any stormwater runoff calculations? Have you done those?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have they been presented to the city?
We have sent in a preliminary, and like I said, in final, and we sent to Stark County Soil
Yeah.
and Water Conservation District and the city for approval.
Are you familiar with the phase 2 remediation,
We
the
are.
study that was done out there?
Doing one ourselves.
So you're doing one yourselves. Are you aware that there might be,
And we've completed the phase one.
okay, are you aware that there might be some chemicals of concern on that property?
Attorney Swing, how is this relevant to tonight's proceedings related to the conditional use permit?
Well, I've been told this is part of the same overall development, and you can't have an accessory use without a preliminary,
And-
without a principal use.
And
you
that
can't have
will,
a
that will
principal
be
use.
discussed in the second half of the meeting after the conditional use permit. Please limit your questions to the conditional use permit aspect.
Mr. Boyer, as you know, if you limit me in this administrative proceeding, I'm gonna seek at the common pleas court level to reopen the record, okay? I want a full and fair opportunity this evening to cross-examine these witnesses and to put on witnesses of my own.
And you will have that as to the conditional use permit, which is the
That's what-
subject of this adjudication hearing.
Is there, did you guys give notice, public notice, that there's gonna be final site plan consideration this evening?
In the agenda that you received, it discusses the conditional use permit and it discusses the general development review, which is part of our.
General
procedure.
development review is a far cry from final site plan approval. Don't you agree with that?
It's part of the discussion, it's part of the standard
It's
that we
part
go.
of a discussion, but it's not part of an adjudicatory hearing, correct?
The general development review is not an adjudicatory hearing. Adjudicatory hearings are limited to conditional use permits and variances.
So you can't grant final site plan approval without an adjudicatory hearing.
Yes, you can, because final site plan approval is not required to be an adjudicatory hearing. The adjudicatory hearings pursuant to our statutes, conditional use permits and variances.
Have you done any traffic studies?
Yes.
Have you done any noise studies? Have you done any light studies? Are you-
I have to object again, Attorney Swing. What does this have to do with the conditional use permit
It's all
that
part of the
is in front
same
of you?
project. You can't grant the accessory use without considering the principal use. It's accessory.
And that will be considered in the second half of today's meeting, which is open for public
Which is a
comment.
public meeting, not an adjudication hearing.
And
Two
as I
different things.
stated, the adjudicatory hearing is limited to the conditional use permit and the variance.
Are you aware that there are chemicals of concern on the larger parcel where you plan to put the super center?
Objection, what does that have to do with the conditional use permit?
Are you aware of that?
We are.
Okay, are you aware that that there's concern that there are metals, right?
On which parcel, Attorney
The
Swing?
larger parcel, 2584.
Which has nothing to do with the gas
Are you
station,
aware
is
of
that
that?
correct? Attorney Swing, please stop.
Are you
Ask
aware?
limit your questions to the conditional use
Are
permit
you
proceeding.
then going to prevent me from asking these questions, Mr. Boyer? Are you gonna close the record on me where I can't make the record?
You can ask whatever questions you want as long as they are relevant
They
to
are
the
relevant.
conditional use
They
permit
can-
that is being sought.
You can't have a conditional use for an accessory use without a principal use.
And the
Dave
principal use,
testified this is all part of the same development, Mr. Boyer. It's clearly relevant.
Attorney
and
Swing,
my
it will be
question-
relevant for the second half of this discussion,
No,
which is in the public meeting.
you're trying to
aspect.
shut me down is what you're trying to do.
I am
You don't want to talk
asking
about
you-
the fact that there are volatile organic compounds, polynuclear aromatic hydrocarbons, that there are PCBs, that there are some serious concerns on that larger parcel. You're trying to shut me down so I don't get into that with these witnesses. Are you aware of that?
That is not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to limit you to the scope of the hearing, which is the conditional use permit related to the gas station. If you would like to discuss those items, you can in the public speaks aspect of it, which occurs after the conditional use permit.
Why is it that you don't reflect any of the soil? I see soil borings in the preliminary plans. If you look at that, if you look at sheet C-101, you want to take a look at that with me? You see the borings that are noted on there?
Are the borings located on the gas station parcel, Attorney Swing?
Yeah, matter of fact, they are. They're noted, they're throughout the property, but as the testimony's already been given, Mr. Boyer, it's all part of the same project. It's all part of the same development, okay?
They are, what's your concern?
My concern is
Gas
why
station.
well, my concern is why there are soil borings that are noted on that sheet, but there's no symbol for it, there's no legend for it, there's nothing that connects it. And the same is true for page
You know,
one of the preliminary
That's
plan.
not a requirement for the submittal.
I don't know whose requirement you're referring to, but the
The
page,
city's requirement.
okay, that's the city, we'll take that up with the city, but page one of the preliminary plans, you see where it says geotechnical information and there's nothing there. Look at page one, ma'am, if you would. Page one of the preliminary plans. You're familiar with the preliminary plans. You're going backwards. Page
This is
one.
one. Oh, you mean the cover sheet?
It's page one of the preliminary plan, right there. Okay, do you see where it says geotechnical information?
Because
It's blank. Can you explain to the planning commission why it's blank?
Because the geotechnical,
Are you testifying, Mr. Boyer?
I am explaining to you, sir.
Lonnie just answered the question, that it's not part of the application to submit geotechnical studies.
So we're gonna ignore all the stuff, all the bad stuff that's on the 2584 parcel, even though it's gonna be part of this overall development. This evening, we're gonna pretend like it doesn't exist.
Geotechnical geotechnical is for bearing capacity on soil.
Have you,
It's
sir,
not for environmental matters.
have you read the phase two environmental study yourself?
We've conducted, we have a consultant engaged, and we've done a phase one, we've done a phase two. So some of our findings are at the lab being analyzed. We're proceeding through a voluntary action plan with the state of Ohio and the EPA.
So it's clearly relevant. You agree with me? It's clearly relevant to the development of the site,
there's a
right?
lot being done already with a consultant, so I don't know why it has to be brought up in hearing,
Do you-
because
do you-
it is part of the design, right?
You-
And
you
you
can-
can't build until you get those permits, so that's part of just the process of getting final construction permits.
You can characterize it however you like, but you have to admit that it's relevant to evaluating whether or not a conditional use ought to be granted for the 2582, the gasoline station property.
No,
connected.
we disagree because that's the environmental sensitive areas on a different parcel
I have,
in the gas station.
okay, I have nothing further. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody from the commission have any questions?
Yes, I have a question. The drive to the south, past the existing Cutler property, that will be maintained as part of the development? Yes, off of the gas station parcel, which is what we're talking about.
Can you speak up, Ms. West?
It will probably be rebuilt, all of the pavement that this there now.
Yeah,
for the
and
fire
you as the developer owns that part, that developer outlot D and the drive all the way out to Apple Grove, correct?
for the gas station.
Well, off of the gas station proper, the developer outlot D, if we go to the site plan, C200. Okay. I just wondered if the status of that drive was gonna remain open, which was my question.
Frozen, it's not moving.
That's fine.
But yes.
the drive will
so
be
you're talking
maintained.
about where Burger King is?
The
No.
south,
So off the south end of, can I clarify?
Yeah.
I apologize for interrupting.
southwest corner.
In the southwest corner, the current existing drive to Apple Grove, I believe you're referring to the easternmost of the two drives.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that drive going to remain open for ingress and egress from the gas station to Apple Grove?
Yes.
Okay.
Those two existing drives onto Apple Grove from the previous Kmart development will remain.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was my question. Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
One is, outlot E, you propose Sergeant Coon property? Part
I don't think there's been a finalization on any development.
So remains owned by the city.
outlot B,
C and D remain owned by the city. As well as our parcel A.
Do we have any other questions? No? All right, thank you both. Appreciate it.
Mr. Boyer, I'd like an opportunity to speak, and I'd like an opportunity to present evidence, and I'd like an opportunity to present witnesses to the planning commission this evening in opposition to this.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Please swear in.
Just swear.
You swear the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be true.
I do. Gentlemen, and ladies, I don't know how you can approve, why you would want to approve an accessory use, a conditional use on a piece of property where we haven't even fully vetted the principal use. It's out of order, it's backwards. We got the cart before the horse. May it please the Planning Commission, Chris Swing, I'm here on behalf of Albrecht Incorporated and Acme Fresh Market. You are charged this evening with reviewing the proposed conditional use application as presented on the submitted preliminary plans and specifications on the application that was submitted, and there was only one. You are to determine whether or not the proposed use is appropriate and in keeping with the purpose and intent of the City of North Canton zoning code. You are charged this evening with reviewing the application to determine if it complies with the establishment and operation of the proposed use. You are to do it in keeping with the general criteria established for all conditional uses and the specific requirements established for that particular use set forth in section 1145 of the zoning code. It is the applicant's burden of proof, not mine. It's the applicant's burden of proof this evening. And it is the applicant's burden of proof, and it is your decision that must be supported by a preponderance of the substantial, reliable, and probative evidence on the whole record. The decision must not be unconstitutional, can't be illegal, can't be arbitrary, can't be capricious, can't be unreasonable. And in regard to the present application, the applicant has not met its burden. At worst, the preliminary plans that I've seen that have been submitted to the Planning Commission evidence that they violate the City of North Canton zoning code. And at best, they are insufficient to demonstrate that they satisfy the zoning code for conditional use standards or for an accessory use. These very proceedings are out of order. Before there's even been approval of the principal use behind it, before the appropriate studies have been done that have been shared with me, Moreover, Albrecht will present affirmative evidence which demonstrates that the applicant cannot meet its burden. And in that regard, we're going to call Greg Ernst, an architect. We're going to call Chris Hopkins from CT Consulting, a land use planner. We're going to call Nick Albrecht, and we're going to call Joe Albrecht to testify as to why this either violates the code or the evidence that has been submitted thus far is insufficient. The application should be denied this evening, and at a minimum, you should table it until you get more information. For starters, the City of North Canton zoning code was overhauled and amended in 2021, and consistent with the city's master plan, North Canton prohibited gas stations in any of the 5 primary districts located in the city's central corridor. That includes Main Street Central, Main Street North, Main Street South, Main Street North Gateway, Main Street South Gateway. Indeed, in 2019, even before the zoning code was overhauled, the North Canton City Council Community and Economic Development Committee recognized that more gas stations do not belong on Main Street when it passed resolution number 2-2019. Quote, a resolution requesting the Planning Commission consider recommending to City Council restrictions on new gas station locations on Main Street to maintain and promote the aesthetic features of Main Street as a core area for retail sales and service. Specifically, a text and map amendment were recommended. Specifically, it was recommended that the Planning Commission place special emphasis on recognizing City Council's concerns in providing appropriate and convenient locations for business activities while protecting residential neighborhoods from traffic and pedestrian congestion, noise, and other objectionable consequences. Notwithstanding that, however, on June 21st, 2022, City Council passed Ordinance 24-2022 to allow gasoline stations when accessory to a retail use as the primary use on 5 or more acres, but only in the Main Street North Gateway District, not all 5, just that one, and only as an accommodation for Meyer. It is a textbook example of spot zoning for a contemplated singular development, Meyer, for which there's no executed purchase agreement that I'm aware of at this point even. I've asked for it repeatedly, haven't received it. The spot zoning confers a special benefit on Meyer or on the individual property owner, not commonly enjoyed by others similarly situated in the district. It's patchwork, and it sets dangerous precedent. You cannot make up the rules as you go along. The proposed conditional use does not comply with the spirit and intent of the newly amended zoning code effective 2021, nor does the planned principal use behind it. In fact, the spot zoning ordinance ignores the time, money, thought, resources, and expertise that were brought to bear to develop that district to begin with and to amend and update and overhaul the zoning code. But we're going to make it up as we go along and change it now. The Main Street District regulations provide under 113601, these districts are established to promote the development of higher density, more consistent walkable urban fabric and attract increased investment in key commercial corridors and nodes. The gas station doesn't do that, and it violates the spirit and intent of the zoning code. 113601B provides that the following are the general characteristics of the Main Street District that these regulations advance. 1, a mixture of storefront, retail, professional offices, and dwelling units located in residential buildings and in upper stories or rear and mixed-use buildings. Doesn't advance that. Buildings with active building facades set at or close to the sidewalk with parking located along the side and in the rear of the buildings. Doesn't advance that. Pedestrian-oriented scale development with sidewalks wide enough for the activation and regularly spaced street trees that promote a walkable environment. Doesn't advance that. Moreover, based on the plans that have been submitted, you can't tell there's insufficient detail, at least on what was provided to me, and I asked repeatedly for everything that had been submitted to this planning commission in support of the application, and I got what's been marked as Exhibit 1 so far. And you cannot tell from that. You cannot tell from that. Well, you can tell a couple things. You can tell that the zoning code is violated in certain circumstances, but you can also tell that there's insufficient detail to support you guys granting a conditional use application. And the gas station is not an accessory use, and passing an ordinance that says so doesn't make it so. 11, for example, looking at your own zoning code, 112502B11A provides that Building accessory means a subordinate building detached from, but located on the same lot as the principal building. That's not the case in looking at the preliminary plans. The use of which is incidental and accessory to the principal building or use, and which is constructed subsequent to the principal building or the main use of the land. 1125B115A speaks to accessory uses. Okay, so I just gave you the definition for accessory building. Accessory use means a use of land incidental to the principal use of a lot or building located on the same lot. They're not even entitled right now, Meyer. 113604C provides that accessory uses shall be permitted as a subordinate building or use when it is clearly incidental to and located on the same lot as the principal building or use. Let me share with you what Webster's dictionary says about incidental. Incidental is defined as being likely to ensue as a chance or minor consequence. Does this gas station seem to you to result as a result of chance or minor consequence? Or occurring merely by chance without intention or calculation? It's purely calculated. And then finally, 117707 says that a conditional use permit shall authorize a particular conditional use on a specific parcel. And I'm curious, what parcel are we going to put that on? Because at this point, this evening, those are two separate parcels. They're not on the same parcel. And in the absence of any application for approval of the principal use, final site plan approval, where you've got somebody that's actually going to purchase the property, the application for approval of the accessory use is premature and it's unsupported for lack of a principal use. With that, I'd like to call my first witness. Gary? Excuse me. Greg Ernst, please. Yeah, over there would be good. You can stand, sit, whatever, however you're comfortable, all right?
You swear the testimony you're about to give is cause will be true.
Greg, would you introduce yourself to the Planning Commission, please?
My name is Greg Ernst, Gregernszt. I am Vice President of AODK Architects in Lakewood, Ohio. And I have 23 years of architecture experience with 17 years registered in 3 different states. And I'm also chairman, I've been chairman of the board of the Architectural Review Board in Bay Village for the last 14 years. I'm NCARB certified, GBCI certified, I'm also LEED certified.
Mr. Ernst, the Planning Commission is charged this evening with determining whether to grant a conditional use application. Do you have an opinion of whether it should be granted, and if so, what is that opinion?
I do not think it should be granted at this time.
Okay, and are you able to, in broad strokes, explain to the Planning Commission why you don't think it should be granted?
When it comes to the accessory use or the incidental use, there are 2 parcels, of which according to the Starr County Auditor's website, the 2 parcels have not been consolidated yet. I understand that they may be, but as of right now, for what's before the board, they are not. And also, I believe that there's insufficient information as far as any kind of aesthetics or the height, the elevation of what this building looks like at this point.
I'm going to hand you, sir, what have been marked for identification as exhibits 2 and 3, if you take a second to look at that. And before you say anything else, Mr. Ernst, would you tell the Planning Commission what you reviewed in forming your opinion?
I reviewed, yeah,
Go ahead. I'm sorry, in advance of the hearing this evening.
I reviewed the application that is before the board right now, and I reviewed the North Canton zoning code, and those are the 2 main items.
Okay, and exhibit 1 was the application. Mr. Porter, do you know what happened to that?
I don't know where that. I have it here.
Well, the nice lady with Meyer had it. Are they still here? Did you put it in your folder by chance?
What were you looking for?
Exhibit
Exhibit
1,
one.
which was the plan. Remember when we looked at the plans together? Thank you. I'm handing you, sir, what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 1. Is that the application that you referred to?
Yes,
And was it your understanding that that was the entirety of the application that was submitted in support of the conditional use application?
yes,
And when you testify that you reviewed the application, that's what you refer to?
this is the application.
Tell the planning commission, if you would, what you're looking at in terms of Exhibits 2 and 3, please.
This is property information for community improvement. It tells me what's the existing lots that are in question, what they are, what they sold for, just information from the auditor's website.
And can you tell me who owns those lots?
State of North Canton.
Is that part of part of what you reviewed and prepared for your testimony this evening?
Correct.
I'm going to hand you Mr. Ernst. We're going to mark it for identification as Exhibit 4. And for the record, this is an excerpt from Chapter 1136. I didn't reproduce the entirety of it, so I don't want to misrepresent the council that it's the entire section. It's 1136. Can you tell me, sir, whether or not, in your opinion, the preliminary plans that were attached to the application, whether or not the preliminary plans satisfy Section 1136.01?
I do not believe that the application as submitted satisfies these conditions.
And why is that?
Basically, what they're asking for is for ability and pedestrian scale up the street, residential above with retail below, and a more densely urban fabric. I do not believe that the gas station as submitted meets those criteria.
Sir, if you would, please look at 1136.01B as in boy. Can you tell the planning commission whether or not, in your professional opinion, the preliminary plans that have been submitted satisfy those zoning regulations?
You do not believe they do. It's talking about a mixture of storefront, retail, professional offices, dwelling units, as mentioned previously, buildings with active building facades set at or close to the sidewalk, with parking located on the side or behind, and pedestrian-oriented scale. For obvious reasons, pedestrian-oriented scale, it was obliterated by having a gas station with an in and out off the main street, and nothing about the gas station as proposed helps to develop any of this.
Okay, did you say obliterated?
Obliterated.
I'm going to hand you, sir, next what we're going to mark for identification as Exhibit, I think we're on 5.
We're on 5.
Mr. Ernst, handing you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 5. Would you take a second to review that? And for the record, it's Chapter 1145 of the zoning code. In your professional opinion, do the preliminary plans that have been submitted to the Planning Commission satisfy 1145 of the conditional use regulations, specifically 1145? Let's start with 1145.02, the general criteria.
I do not believe that they satisfy these.
Okay, and can you explain to the Planning Commission why they don't satisfy those regulations? Sure. Let's make the record.
As far as it being point A, as far as it being harmonious, appropriate in appearance with the existing or intended character of the general vicinity. As far as the existing, I do not believe that's relevant because the master plan that was set forth is to improve the area. And so if we're talking about intended character, I do not believe a gas station would fit in with the intended character of this area.
Okay, and Greg, Mr. Ernst, it goes without saying, I don't want you to go further than you're comfortable with, right? So as you go through these, okay, these items in 1145.02, just tell the Planning Commission which ones you think are not satisfied, either are not satisfied or there's insufficient information to support
Okay.
that.
I would say item C, which talks about adversely affecting existing use of adjacent property owners. As far as I can tell from the application, there was no traffic study done. We do not know if it's going to adversely affect that. Item D, same thing with the access drives. Again, without a traffic study, we can't really determine that. EPA storm water runoff from.
Excuse me for interrupting. Did you see traffic studies as being part of the application that was submitted this evening for this adjudication hearing?
I did not.
Okay. Did you see any other studies that were submitted as part of this adjudication hearing?
I did not.
Did you see any geotechnical information that was submitted?
No.
Did you see any noise studies that were submitted?
No.
How about photometric? Did you see any photometric
There is a
studies?
photometric in the plan.
Okay. Proceed.
Item E, with regards to EPA and stormwater runoff, I heard the applicant mention that there was a detention pond planned for the principal use, but obviously there's no permission in this application, so there's nothing to respond to there. Insufficient information. Sorry, I'm just reading this quickly.
So there's not a preponderance of evidence, let alone any evidence to support that in your opinion?
Correct.
Go ahead.
Hours of operation were not put into the application. It was mentioned today, but they were not on the application, which is item H. Item I is the establishment of conditional use.
Forgive me for interrupting you, Mr.
Go ahead.
Rutherford. So for item H, insufficient information to support the
Insufficient
application.
information.
All right, please proceed.
Item J, I would say there's insufficient information with regards to utilities and drainage for the aforementioned retention pond, as far as how the utilities are getting on site, exiting the site. So I would say insufficient information there. Again, item K with regards to traffic is insufficient. We don't have a traffic study. I'd say that's pretty much it.
All right, sir. I'm going to hand you one more document, Mr. Ernst. We're going to mark this as Exhibit 6 for identification. These are some of the definitions in the zoning code that deal with accessory uses. I guess before we get to the definitional sections, I want you to have those for reference. In your professional opinion, does this constitute an accessory use under the City of North Canton zoning code?
I do not believe it.
Okay, and would you please explain to the planning commission why you believe that?
Because well, number one, the fact that the lots have not been consolidated to the county website. Without them being consolidated, we don't have an accessory use without a principal building.
Any other reasons? Sir, I don't have any further questions for you. Thank you.
Any members of the planning commission have any questions?
I just want to, section 1136.
Mr. Ernst, these questions are directed.
Oh,
Yeah, I just have a question. I just want to make sure that you read this correctly. 113601 intent. The Main Street districts are intended to respect existing surrounding development patterns. Just want to make sure that was read correctly.
That was 1136.
Yeah, 1136.01. I know there was a point being made that the zoning has an intent to improve from its previous place, but it is noted in there on 1136.01, respect existing surrounding development patterns, which if we look across the street, matches very similar. Is that correct? Would you say in your professional opinion that the two developments across the street from each other are very similar, and the new one is like the existing surrounding development pattern?
I'm afraid I'm not familiar with the other side of the street. So
Okay, so we don't know the other side of the street when we come in and make a professional opinion about a project. Okay. 1145, under the items that the planning commission must consider for conditional use. A, B, C, D, E, F, all state, I just want to be clear, will be designed, will not, will be. Is it a statement that you just made that was the intent of your statement that it does not meet those? because will means as part of our normal procedure in the planning commission, it is up to the administrative side to make sure these things are met as part of our process. We do not review final EPA documents on this commission ever. Whether it's a conditional use, whether it's a development plan, preliminary, final, we do not do this. That is part of our code. That is part of our ordinance. That is done on the administrative side, and that is done that way in multiple jurisdictions. And as a professional, you would know that is the case, correct? You have dealt with projects like this in the past, where not all the final information is brought forth to planning commissions. Is that correct? In your experience?
That's correct in the sense that,
Okay, thank you.
Let him finish, please.
Administratively, yes, in order to procure a permit, you would then need to make sure all of these.
Correct, but the
conditions are met.
conditional
Please
use,
let him finish.
but the,
However, I do not believe that what is before you is sufficient information.
okay, but just so we're clear with our code, the conditional use does not require these things to be met at tonight's meeting. Just to be clear, to everyone on the commission, it says will be met. That is done on the administrative side.
Object to the extent you're asking for a legal conclusion.
Acknowledge.
That's all right now.
Well, I have a redirect question, sir. You got 1136 still in your hand? Okay, so if you look at 113601, it speaks to, it says, and I quote, "These districts are established to promote the development of," right? That's all right, take your time.
Promote the development of higher density markets, yeah,
Okay, do the preliminary plans do that, in your opinion?
I do not believe they do.
Thank you. I have nothing else. Mr. Ernst, thank you very much.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to call Ms. Hopkins, Chris Hopkins, to testify.
Before Ms. Hopkins testifies, I'd like her to know that engaged by the North Canton on this project, on other projects that are related to this project.
Right, not this project. My understanding is that they've looked at it.
Okay, no problem.
If I may clarify,
Please.
I looked to see if CT was engaged by North Canton, and I did not find that to be the case. I did not look to see if CT was engaged by Myers.
They have been engaged by.
I beg your pardon?
Yeah.
Let me say it again. CT has been engaged by the city of North Canton.
On an unrelated project,
No,
in regard to this project.
I would say yes.
Do we have somebody to testify about that this evening?
Yes.
Because my understanding is that she's checked for conflicts and that they're not engaged on this project.
Somebody made a mistake.
In any event, she's going to testify, Mr. Moore, unless you shut me down and close this hearing down and disallow her testimony. I'm going to call her and I'm going to proffer that testimony.
I'm just alerting you to a fact that most professionals would not provide testimony against their client on a project. So whatever you want to do, Chris,
Yeah.
whatever you want to do,
You may testify.
at your peril.
That sounds like a threat.
That's not a threat.
You may testify.
My name is Chris Frank.
You swear the testimony.
I do.
Good evening, Ms. Hopkins. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the Planning Commission?
My name is Kristen Hopkins. I am manager of planning services at CT Consultants. My address is 1001 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 1005 in Cleveland, Ohio, 4411.
And before we get started this evening, Ms. Hopkins, before I contacted you, did you have any knowledge, you yourself personally, did you have any personal knowledge about this project?
I do not.
Would you please share with the planning commission what your background is in terms of education, professional experience?
Yes, I have been a practicing land use planner for over 30 years. I was employed first by DB Hart Incorporated, and then while I was working for DB Hart, I worked with David Hart on the update of the North Canton zoning code years ago. Then after 16 years with DB Hart, I served as the manager of planning services with the Cuyahoga County Planning Commission for 10 years. And then for the last 8 years, I have been with CT Consultants. I am, as I said, the manager of planning services. I work in the Cleveland office, which has a total of about 5 people in it, and I rarely interact with members of the organization outside of the downtown office.
And Ms. Hopkins, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Mr. Ernst. The planning commission, and before I get to that though, do you consider yourself to be an expert in land use planning?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I have been doing planning and zoning my entire career.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert witness in a court of law?
I have.
The planning commission this evening is charged with determining whether to grant a conditional use application for an accessory use. Do you have an opinion of whether it should be granted? And if so, what is that opinion?
In accordance with the definition of an accessory use, I would reiterate that without a principal use first authorized and in existence or being authorized simultaneously, which is not the case with this, that it is premature to authorize an accessory use.
Okay, I'm going to hand you, or if you have it, maybe I'll grab it up here. What's been marked previously for identification as Exhibit 4 in Section 1136. Ms. Hopkins, if you take a moment to look at that, my question is, do you have an opinion concerning whether or not the preliminary plans and the application that have been submitted for this conditional use satisfy 1136.01?
No, I do not.
And can you explain to the planning commission why you hold that opinion?
Well, in terms of the intent, which is subsection A, 113601A, it does refer to the districts are established to promote the development of a higher density, more consistent walkable urban fabric, and attract increased investment in key commercial corridors. And note, as was pointed out, the Main Street districts are intended to respect existing surrounding development patterns while also promoting desired development patterns within the district. So the intent to that new development will promote higher density, more consistent walkable urban fabric. I do not believe that.
And if you would be kind enough to take a look at 1136.01B, do you have an opinion concerning whether or not the application that's been submitted for the conditional use, whether it satisfies those regulations?
No. It was pointed out, B1 is the mixture of retail, offices, dwelling units. B2 is active building facades that are close to the street. The gas station is not close to the street. It has 100% of its parking in front, and as well, the retail building has 100% of its parking in front and is set far back from the street, much farther than the previous Kmart and much farther than the retail stores across. The gas station is mid-block and not the gas station at the.
Thank you. Good morning, Cecily. Ordinance 7, Mr. Board.
Yes. It's sad.
Ms. Hopkins, I'm handing you what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 7. I don't know if you've seen that before this evening, so take a moment to look at it. Once you have a chance to read that, and for the record, it is an article that appeared in the Canton Repository on April 14, 2020. North Canton to borrow $4.4 million to buy Kmart property. I'll let you know when there's a question. I'm going to mark for identification as Exhibit 8. Resolution 2-2019. You've seen a lot of developments. My question is there anything about this development, the sequencing, the timing, the tempo, that raises eyebrows for you?
To approve through this conditional use process an accessory use for a project that hasn't been approved yet raises concerns for me, primarily because I have seen projects that have been approved, but then when they do go through the due diligence of the environmental factors, this project falls through. And one of the things I would like to read is in regard to, is an excerpt of the city's 2012 master plan, where there was an analysis of the Apple Grove Stratavan process.
Ms. Hopkins, before you do that, may I mark that as an exhibit, please? Thank you, Mr. Court Reporter. Handing what's been marked for identification as Exhibit 9, which is an excerpt from the master plan. When you're ready, Ms. Hopkins.
So on page 65 of the master plan, it does discuss the mining history of the site, and it talks about how the northwest corner will require mine remediation before any development occurs. And so to the extent, and it also cites wetlands and that on the site, and lays out areas that are, from a preliminary standpoint, areas that are developable and areas that are of concern. So again, the concern I would have is granting a conditional accessory use, granting that as an approved project without the principal use being approved and underway, because the tendency is that once something is approved and it's viable, though the other part of the project is not, that there may be a tendency to grant variances or otherwise allow that conditional accessory use to move forward without the principal use being built.
Well, and the zoning code actually states that the accessory use is to be constructed subsequent to the principal use, correct?
That is correct.
So we've got it backwards this evening, don't we?
Yes.
At least to that extent. Does this process appear to be hurried to you?
Hurried is a subjective term, and so I would point out, as has already been pointed out, how this gas station allowance came to be. That is what would cause me concern, in the sense that in looking at chapter 1136 and thinking about looking at schedule 113605, the schedule of permitted uses. My count is that in the Main Street Northgate district, there are approximately 30-some principal uses that are permitted or conditionally permitted that are listed on the schedule. Noteworthy is the fact that gasoline station was listed as not permitted in all five of these sub-districts along the Main Street. And then to know that a year later, gas stations as an accessory to a retail use on 5 or more acres is conditionally permitted for an accessory use. That causes me to question why gas stations are not permitted were not permitted during the entire time the draft was being considered and finally approved. And then now it is added to it, and it's only added into this one particular sub-district. When there are other areas, like, for example, the Southgate area allows conditionally permitted car washes to be conditionally permitted, the same as in the Northgate. But gasoline stations were added recently only to this one particular area of the corridor. And it makes me wonder if during the time that the city was reviewing and updating this and creating this chapter 1136, if there were reasons why, or what the reasons were why gas stations were not included when vehicle repair facilities are added, car washes are added, drive-through facilities are added or included.
Does it make more sense when you appreciate that there's a Meyer supercenter that's the intended principal use behind it? That's the singular use.
Whether it makes sense or not,
Does it make sense? Let me restate that. Does it make sense from a land use planning standpoint?
when you look to see that the only requirement for a gas station to be an accessory conditional use is that it's on 5 or more acres, and accessory to a retail use, that is perplexing. I have not seen that. I've never seen it.
Okay, and just one other little question here. As you were doing your preparation and you looked at the ordinance that was attached to the application and you compared it to the actual zoning ordinance and it talked about 5 acres, did you note any discrepancies between the actual code and what was attached to the application in terms of the acreage?
You mean in terms of
5 versus 55?
55 in the actual code that's available online?
Okay, so the code that's online says 55 acres. Presumably somebody buried typo something, but it doesn't coincide with the 5 acres that appears in the application, right?
Right.
Okay. I don't have anything else for you. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Hawkins?
Yeah, I do. Have you visited the site?
I have not visited the site. I have looked at aerial photos of the site.
So you have not driven there
No.
and drove up and down Main Street?
Not in the last couple of years, but
Thank you.
I have been and am familiar with North Canton, having written or worked on the zoning code and done other projects with the city over the course of 30-some years I've been.
But you live in Cleveland?
Yes, I live in.
I have a question for Ms. Hopkins as well. When you said that the gas station that's proposed is not like the gas station at the corner, what exactly did you mean by that?
Well, typically, there are communities that allow gas stations, that only allow gas stations at a corner because of the frequency of in and out traffic. So absent any other conditions on how and where a gas station would be permitted, but having someone referencing the fact that across the street it's similar to what's across the street. The point I was making is that the location of the gas station, the proposed gas station, is not the same as the existing gas station across.
When you reviewed the code prior to this evening, did you see anything in the code related to where gas stations could be located from a physical location perspective?
No, there is nothing in the zoning code that addresses gas stations as conditional use and what those conditions are.
Thank you.
Is, do you know the size of the parcel across the street, the Albrecht parcel?
I do not have that.
Just for your information, it's larger than 5 acres. Do you know the size of the parcel to the north that the Dairy Queen's located in, the plaza just north of there?
The size of what's across? the
Size
street?
of the parcel that the Dairy Queen Plaza is located just to the
No, I
north?
do not.
It is larger than 5 parcels. Or 5 acres, sorry. Opinion was stated, it seemed that, you know, a spot zoning comment was made. The definition of spot zoning is for a specific parcel.
That's
The
your,
parcel-
that's your definition, sir.
Well, the parcel across the street could easily apply for a gas station just as much as this parcel. I just want to make it clear to everyone in the room that it's just not applicable for this parcel as the opinion was stated
Should
to
we
the
swear
record.
you as a witness?
You object, Chris.
I'd be glad to swear
You've been
in.
very considerate to all your witnesses. You should, if you don't like. what
I'm just
he's
saying, he's giving legal opinions, Mr. Moore.
No, I'm not. I'm
No,
stating, I'm stating that the opinion was given on the record
Right.
that this parcel was singled out for spot zoning because it was bigger than 5 acres as the code states. I am just stating for fact, across the street, the parcel is bigger than 5 acres. Up the street, another parcel bigger than 5 acres. All within a baseball's throw of this site. So I just want to be clear to everybody in the room that the zoning was not changed for a specific site as opinionated multiple times tonight.
There are 5 districts in the Main Street corridor, and it only affects one of the 5
Understood.
districts.
Understood. And that's the way the code is written.
No, that's the way the code was amended, sir.
No, as it stands tonight, that is the way it's written. As it stands tonight, that is the way it's written.
As it was recently amended.
As it
Right.
stands tonight. Just like as it stands tonight, those parcels are not joined.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I do have one other comment I would like to.
Sure.
So I would like to read the last sentence of section 1145.02. It's the general criteria for all conditional uses. And that's the introductory paragraph to A through M, which are the conditions or the circumstances under which conditional uses are to be evaluated. It's the last sentence reads, the planning commission shall review particular facts and circumstances of each proposed use in terms of the following criteria and shall find adequate evidence that the use as proposed, semicolon, A through M starts out, will be designed, will be not be detrimental, will not restrict. So I would say that it is something that the planning commission is to be concerned with and considering tonight. based on the evidence presented.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the planning commission?
Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. At this time, may it please the planning commission, I'd like to ask Nick Albrecht some questions, and I'll be brief.
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this cause will be true?
Good evening, Mr. Albrecht.
Hi, Chris.
Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the planning commission?
Well, my name is Nick Albrecht. I'm the president of the Back and Fresh Market Grocery Company.
Mr. Albrecht, you're here this evening, obviously, with regard to the application on the conditional use application, and we've heard various testimony. I'd like to hand you what we've looked at before as being section 1145 of the zoning code. Take a second to look at that. And my question is pretty straightforward. Are there any items in 1145.02? And I'd make reference to item C, and any other items that you might think are not satisfied by the conditional use application this evening, and if you could explain to the planning commission why you believe that.
When I read C, will not restrict or adversely affect the existing use of the adjacent property owners. The existing use of business that I help to run is a grocery store across the street, adjacent property, and putting a major big box competitor across the street will greatly adversely affect the existing use and our ability to run a grocery store.
And can you explain why?
We will suffer significant sales decreases across the street with this new competitor, as well as lack of stomachs in North Canton, and cut services, cut jobs, and then take a real hard look at the viability of our grocery store across the street.
How long have you been across the street, Mr. Albrecht?
We have been in that location since 1979, which is about 40 years.
And do you have an opinion about what effect, if any, it will have on other businesses in the Main Street corridor, especially the North Gateway?
Well, there is a lot of retail, and all those retail stores, local grocers, local pharmacies will be adversely affected from a sales standpoint because of the addition of this major player.
Did you, in forming that opinion, look at the census data for the city of North Canton over the last 5, 10, 20 years?
We did. We looked at the census data 2020, 2010, and we noted the relatively flat population growth. That's my comments. Lack of stomachs here in North Canton.
So these are my words, not yours. Do you agree that it effectively would cannibalize some of the existing retail in that North Main Street Gateway district?
I totally agree with that statement. It's a 150,000 square foot proposed big box retailer. To do the volume that a store like that needs to do. It's got existing retail establishments that are adjacent property owners.
I have nothing else for you, Mr. Albrecht. Thank you for appearing this evening.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Albrecht?
I do. If this wasn't a grocery store establishment being proposed, would Acme still have this legal counsel here?
Objection hypothetical.
There's a lot of hypothetical.
Just make an objection for the record, sir.
When I first read that the plan to rezone and create a vibrant district across the street that contained more stomachs, that contained real estate that people could live in, homes, apartment buildings, a retail corridor that would bring people to the area and create a diverse tax base as well as other jobs, office jobs, I think was cited. I was very excited for North Canton and for the existing retailers in that area.
Acme Albrecht is an Akron-based company, correct?
Yes, sir.
So there's two issues here. There's the legality of the ordinance modification and the procedural timing of this. So if the lot consolidation geotechnical report, environmental report had been done, that would take all of those off of the table. We're only left with the legality of the ordinance modification.
There's a lot in that question. There are a lot of assumptions.
I'm just trying to get down to the basis of why all of this is
It's
happening.
fundamentally out of order. It's fun, you're approving an accessory use where you haven't even considered the plans for the principal use. I'm not sure how else
Is there
to
a
make it.
construction schedule where there is accessory use is going to be built first? Is there a construction schedule for this project at all? They're going to be built consecutively?
They're built in conjunction with each other, the gas station and the store. Typically, the gas station opens 1 month prior to the store. And our construction schedule is to open the store in spring of 2024.
Mr. Mahalson, is it pronounced correctly, Mahalson?
Yes.
Let me see if I can be more direct in answering your question. If you had preliminary and final site plan approvals for the principal use, and then this came behind it, it would make a huge difference. Does that answer your question?
So then the Albrechts wouldn't be here defending competition from another store across the street? Because that's what I just heard.
No, that's an entirely different question.
I understand that.
What I'm saying is, it's illegal that you're doing it in the order that you're doing it.
Okay, if we get past that, say this is,
I
this
can't-
procedural process has changed. We keep doing this, but it's,
I can't answer much hypotheticals if you want to.
okay, so we're listening to something based on competition.
No, we're listening to
It's not-
something based on the zoning code and the way that it's been amended and spot zone. And now the
Understood.
the procedure is flawed. It's not an accessory use. There's no principal use that's been approved. It doesn't satisfy the conditions in your zoning code. Those are the issues before the planning commission this evening.
Mr. Boyer, does the modification of the zoning code prior to this date have anything to do with our conditional use?
As of this evening, no, it would not from what we are
We
considering.
are considering the zoning code as it sits on this evening tonight.
That's correct, sir.
So the historical data of the zoning code is completely irrelevant to the conversation about the conditional use. Is that a fair statement for everybody in the room?
Regarding whether or not it's approved this evening, yes, that is a fair statement.
Mr. Boyd, could you,
And I'm Mr. Mahalton, I had the same thing written down as you. I was trying to boil this down after an hour and a half of speculation and opinion. Parcels are not combined into one parcel at this time. That is one issue that's been brought up a few times, correct?
there's a lot consolidation.
Yeah, the lot consolidation is an issue that has been brought up tonight. Therefore, we're saying, the defendant's saying that, we're out of order, so to speak, in this approval process. But if we can get past that, to your point. Also, the general development review, meaning we can't, the opinion has been stated that we can't approve a conditional use without the general development been approved for the main building. That's the other issue that's been
That's what
brought
your
up.
code says, sir.
I'm just saying, this is the issue you have brought to the
Well,
table.
the issue is whether or not the applicant's application is submitted, as it's submitted this evening, is supported by a preponderance of the reliable, credible, and probative evidence on the record as a whole.
Correct.
That's the issue.
Okay, I understand.
And I
I'm
submit
trying to
and I
boil this
submit to you
down.
respectfully, sir, that this evening, as of this evening, it is not.
Correct, I had just stated that. Thank you.
I'm glad you agree.
Thank you. It is not, that is not, the general development review has not been approved for the main structure, therefore, the accessory use potentially is an issue. Also, the traffic study has been brought up multiple times. And then another comment was made that, if a conditional use is approved, and then we find out that there's a problem with soil borings or the EPA, and the project does not go forward, that somehow the gas station would be built without the main building, therefore not being an accessory
Why
use.
would you grant a conditional use approval for something without knowing that?
It is not in our ordinance that you need that.
It-
It states will meet the requirements, not does as of time of application.
Again, I'll direct your attention, sir, to the burden of proof this evening, okay?
Understood, but I just want to make sure that that is one of the items, that the general development plan has not been approved, so that is one of the sticking points that we've,
That's not
Boiled
a
this
general
down.
development plan. There's not a final site plan that's been approved.
we don't have to approve final site plan. We approve general development plans. A lot of the things are handled administratively according to our code after these meetings. It has always been that way.
Does the general.
Is this your
does it-
first
does it-
time at one of our meetings, sir?
Does the general public get an opportunity
Yes,
to consider what traffic studies have been done? When does that happen? Does the general public get an opportunity to hear about whether or not there are adverse impacts environmental? Does the general public ever get to hear about that? Is that done administratively? What do you mean, behind closed doors?
No, is it done according to our code? But, as I was saying, I think we're on the same page as the major sticking points with this.
The environmental impacts being to the shoppers that would go into this development, is that the?
I'll leave that to the environmental consultants. You guys have a phase 2 sitting in your lap right now. You can read it for yourself. It talks about human safety and other issues.
And no
So
building would,
if you
How
haven't
many, how
read,
many North Canton properties are we evacuating?
if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it.
That was,
I have one-
just so everybody understands that you cannot get a building permit without remedying the environmental issues. So the building would never be built without those environmental issues being resolved. It has nothing to do with this stuff.
A lot of ifs and ands and,
Yeah, I've heard there's a lot tonight.
I'd like to say.
but we don't bear the burden of proof. Okay?
It's fine.
So, Mr. Moore,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Planning commission, if it's, they
I'm
could
sorry, Mr. Moore,
move forward.
would you mind
Sure.
standing up because you're just.
The planning commission, if they chose, could move forward with a conditional approval. They could move forward with a conditional approval based upon consolidation of the legal description. They could move forward based upon final or preliminary general site plan approval, or any other conditions that they would choose to make a conditional approval. Happens all the time.
Yeah, and I would say that given the number of conditions that would have to be attached at this point, the exceptions would swallow the rule. So if you want to attach all those conditions, you're going to have pages of conditions that you should attach. And I've only got one more witness if you'd like to hear from them, and then I'll conclude my presentation for this evening.
Before we do that, we take a break for a minutes break.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to take a 5-minute recess.
But is it to have a meeting with the planning commission, legal counsel and the planning commission, or is it to go to that?
You're out of order, sir.
No, I'm not out of order. I'm doing my job, sir.
I would make a motion to take a break. I would make a
I'd like to
motion,
finish.
I would make a motion for a 10-minute.
Allow him to finish.
Are you ready to proceed, sir?
Are you ready to finish the
Yeah,
conversation?
absolutely, I am.
I would like to take a 10-minute break.
I'm going to,
I would make a motion for a 10-minute break.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
emails.
Okay. I'll make a motion at this time to resume our meeting and the adjudication hearing. Second. All in favor? Mr. Boyer?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May it please the planning commission. Thank you for your patience this evening, and thank you for giving us a chance to be heard. I've got one more witness to call. I'd like to call Joe Albrecht, please.
I swear the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be true.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Albrecht, would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the planning commission this evening?
My name is Joe Albrecht. I'm the president of Albrecht Incorporated Shopping Center where Acme Fresh Market is located across the street from the contemplated development.
And in general terms, can you describe for the planning commission the relationship, if any, between Albrecht and Acme Fresh Market?
Acme Fresh Market is a tenant in our shopping center, so it's primarily a landlord-tenant relationship as far as the companies are concerned.
And if you know, Mr. Albrecht, how long has Albrecht Incorporated owned the real estate?
It's a legacy property. We've owned it for quite some time. Acme's operated there since 1979. Shortly thereafter, we had the opportunity to purchase the property, and we did. It was well before my time with the company, so I don't know the exact date, but it's a matter of public record. Consider it a legacy property, an important property.
Fair enough, sir. I'm handing you what has been marked previously for identification as Exhibit 5. And that's, again, Section 1145, or an excerpt of that section of the City of North Canton zoning code. Specifically, Mr. Albrecht, in looking at 1145.02, are there any provisions in that that you believe are violated by virtue of the application that's been submitted?
I think so here. I'm pretty confident that item C will be violated. This is going to have an adverse effect on Acme Fresh Market. It's going to result in a reduction of sales, a reduction of customer visits to our shopping center. So you have two things there. You have the reduction in sales for Acme. It's going to be significant, a very significant reduction in sales. Acme pays rent based on the sales that it does at the shopping center. If it doesn't do the sales, it can't pay the rent. Generally, commercial real estate is valued based on the amount of income that it generates. Then you have a major tenant that is unable to pay the rent. That has a significant impact on the valuation of shopping center. With lack of customer visits to the shopping center as a result of reduction in sales to the Acme store. The other little tenants in the shopping center, they feed off of the traffic that the Acme pulls into the parking lot, the shopping center. So if it's not doing that, then there's not the customers to the same degree as before for the other businesses that are operating.
Thank you for that, Mr. Albrecht. And if we could just back up for a second, what is it that you do for Albrecht Incorporated? Share that with the planning commission.
I'm the president of the company, so we're a small company. So that means for any of you that are small businessmen out here, small businessmen or women, we wear a lot of hats. So I do a lot. I do leasing, I do acquisitions, I do dispositions, I do financing, I deal with our bankers. I do HR. We maintain our own properties through vendors and through an internal maintenance department, so I'm involved in that aspect of the business as well. I really do quite a bit. Fortunately, we have a good group to help out. I don't want to make it sound like it's just me, but I'm involved in all aspects of the business.
And how would you characterize Albrecht Incorporated's business?
Well, we're in the commercial real estate business. We're landlords. We own shopping centers. We own about 2 million square feet of shopping centers. We also own some industrial properties and some office properties as well. All in the area. The 5-county area, Summit, Portage, Cuyahoga, Stark. So, in Medina. So that's what we do. We're really landlords, property owners. We own and manage our portfolio.
And is it that experience then, Mr. Albrecht, that allows you to arrive at an opinion with regard to whether 1145.02B of the zoning code you believe is violated?
Yeah, I've been in the business since 2004. We own significant number of shopping centers, and done a lot of leases, and we've purchased shopping centers, and sold shopping centers, and have I think a good professional experience with how shopping center valuation is impacted when competitors open up, if direct experiences.
That's all I have for you, Mr. Albrecht. Does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Albrecht this evening?
Do you consider, is Albrecht Incorporated, do you consider a developer also, or just a landlord?
No, we do development as well.
Do you consider Giant Eagle competition?
For the developer or for the grocery store?
Either one.
Well, it
For the
depends.
grocery store, the grocery store.
And I would consider that. I think perhaps Nick would be the best person to answer that from a professional experience perspective, but certainly they're selling a lot of the same products that Acme is selling.
You wouldn't see people going to another grocery store, stopping in those same stores that are in your plaza. I'm sorry, shoppers in Meyer wouldn't go to the other stores in your plaza because
Well, I couldn't say for certain. I think there would be some. Certainly, I wouldn't say that if somebody went to Meyer, they would never frequent Chipotle across the street, for example. But I think that the larger point is that there'd be a reduction in traffic onto our shopping center parcel as a result of traffic being pulled over to the other side of the street. And specifically referencing here this item C and saying that, hey, yeah, this is going to have an adverse effect. So,
Any other questions?
So you're representing the developer of the shopping center, but you're not representing Acme.
that's right. And then we're not.
Represents the landowner.
We own the shopping center. We didn't develop it. It was developed a long time ago. We do own the shopping center.
Talking about Acme.
Talking about the landowner. Both. Talking about both.
And I was trying my best to answer the question that was posed, and also suggested that perhaps Nick would be the better one to answer questions as it might relate specifically to the question.
Do you have any historical data that shows by a big box retailer going adjacent to a shopping center that has caused less traffic to that shopping center or increased traffic to that shopping center?
Do I have either or?
I'm just asking the question because we haven't seen any data presented that shows, hey, by this store going in, we're gonna lose 2,000 people a day because this happened at this other center that we had, that the same thing happened,
Yeah.
or.
Well, we do have that actually, and I don't have a spreadsheet for you or anything along those lines, but we own a shopping center in Stowe, and there was a Meijer that opened up right across the way and next door, and that had a significant negative impact the sales at the grocery store.
Oh, I understand the store,
Please
but
let me-
I'm just want to clarify.
You're interrupting him though. He's
I
finishing
wanna-
his question.
I want to clarify my question.
You
I didn't say the
need to.
store, I wasn't talking about the store itself, I was talking about the plaza as a developer. In total, all the stores in the plaza.
I can infer based on the significant reduction in sales from Acme I'm privy to their sales numbers, that there's a significant reduction in traffic to the shopping center.
Anything else? Thank you very much, Mr. Albrecht.
Thank you.
I appreciate that it's getting late this evening. I just want to respectfully submit to the planning commission that it would be reckless to approve a conditional use application this evening. At a minimum, you should table it until you have more information with regard to the principal use. I also want to make sure that I have completely made the record. I've got two CVs here, resumes from the two experts that were called this evening, Mr. Ernst and Ms. Hopkins. I'd like to mark those for identification with the court reporter and make those part of the record. I'd also like to make sure that the phase 2 environmental study that's sitting on the desk right there, I didn't make duplicate copies of that. I'm going to state for the record that I'm asking that that be made part of the record this evening, the administrative record. And we'd make that the next exhibit, Mr. Court Reporter, the environmental study as well. And maybe we can do it now or later, but put an exhibit sticker on that.
Well, one question with regard to that. Meyer and Woolport are in receipt of those documents, correct? You have those documents as well? For the geotechnical, for the environmental?
We have our own geotechnical that we've completed. We have our own phase 1 that we've completed. Our phase 2, the field work is complete and we're waiting on the report from our consultant. So past phase 1 or phase 2, the city has provided us past phase 1s and phase 2s. So it's not necessary for us to receive anything from Mr. Attorney.
How is Meyer committed to this property regardless of what the phase 2, well, since you've already done phase 2? Once you were in receipt of that report, does that change anything? I've heard about mine subsidence from a.
Yeah. We're certainly aware that there's prior mining activity on the site. We're certainly aware that there's prior disposals of hazardous materials on the site. There are
Mitigation.
But there are numerous mitigation measures, and we're working with the Ohio EPA on those measures. It's called Rule 11 that we're working through right now. We're also working with our consultant to take the property through a VAC program, which is a voluntary action plan. So there's lots of things that can be done to remediate the soil contamination, whether it's hauled off and tipped at a disposal site that's approved to handle that type of material, or it's capped with asphalt, or there's vapor intrusion methods you can do to keep the fumes from coming up into the air. I think to get to the root of your question, we need the laboratory analysis that's underway right now. I believe we're due for the report on August 10th. And then that lab analysis, and in conjunction with we have a PhD in our environmental compliance department. We have 220 gas stations in our chain. We have multiple manufacturing facilities that handle waste disposal from manufacturing food and food byproducts. So we'll get with our consultant and our compliance department to look at the budgets that are in the spend created to remediate the environmental items. But some of those things can be greatly improved from today's conditions to future conditions. We can also have at our disposal replacing deed covenants on the land. We can place that no potable water will be used from the site, no children's playgrounds, no schools. The water can't be used for irrigation. We can do lots of things to remediate and enhance the property from its condition today.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. What's the timeline on that, sir?
just said the report is due on the 10th. The remediation act, it goes through a process with the EPA. The VAT program with EPA can take about 6 to 8 months to go through all of the Rule 11 processes.
Okay, and one other
And
question.
if some of it's done in conjunction with construction.
Okay, and one other question. Is there an existing purchase agreement right now between Meyer and the city or the CIC with regard to that property?
There is,
There's an existing an actual purchase agreement,
correct.
not just a letter of intent,
There's a purchase,
fully executed.
fully executed.
Thank you, sir. I'd renew my request for a copy of that. I've asked for it a lot of times. Thank you. I appreciate the planning commission's time and patience this evening.
Thank you, planning board. I'd like to make a couple of comments that are very factual and not so anecdotal. The first one is that we have a traffic study that's been submitted to the city. It's gone into the city. It went in yesterday, is my understanding. We have geotechnical reports. We've done test pits, and we have the historical data for the geotechnical reports. Property is able to handle the load-bearing capacity of them. We have a phase 1 report that's been completed. I just mentioned the phase 2 report. The field work is done. We completed a wetlands assessment. We have a report on the wetland conditions. We're awaiting the, I think it's EPA,
First, the U.S. Army Corps of
U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I think in this case, it's a preliminary jurisdictional determination. We have a lot consolidation plan into the city that not only consolidates parcels, but also re-subdivides parcels to accommodate the city's retained lots. That's into the city. So those things are with the city. I would like to also say that we're here tonight, not only to bring a Meyer project and the benefits that come with it, with the 300 jobs, multi-million-dollar investment. I would say, you know, we're welcome in 266 communities in the Midwest. We're a philanthropic company. We donate 7% of our income to charitable organizations. I hear Acme's, some of their, I guess, afraid of competition is what I hear. It seems like we're starting a trade that they're talking about, and they don't want a level playing field in this city. So I'm disappointed to hear that. You know, we've heard from their landlord. We own 50 million square feet. We face competition every day. We have 1,000 tenants in our buildings. We face competition every day. We're not afraid of competition. I'd also like to, in closing, I'd like to say that we were given the agenda. We didn't set the agenda. We're here based on the agenda that was published. So I would like to table or request the planning board consider tabling this first item, and that we move forward with the second. And I'd like for your consideration on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
If that is passed, we have witnesses from the city of North Canton. So it is getting
Mr. Moore, we can't hear you, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have witnesses from the city of North Canton that we haven't been able to present. So we would want to, reserve our right to present those if you choose to table here. At this stage, I think is probably a good idea.
At that point, I'll entertain a motion if the planning commission would like to entertain Mr. Jones's request to table the hearing.
I'll make a motion to table, item number 5, the adjudication hearing for application 22 NCPC-008 for the conditional use permit for the gasoline station as an accessory to retail.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. All right, at this time, we begin our public meeting portion of the meeting. Item number 6, application number 22 NCPC-008, Wolfer Inc., 1445 North Main Street, North Canton, Ohio, 44720. General Development Plan Review for a new Meyer store and gasoline station. I think we've already gone over some of these items attributed to this, so we don't have to repeat everything we've already gone over. If you would just like to provide any additional context for the development review and how you'd like to proceed tonight.
Overall. So this is our landscape plan that was submitted. Polarized, you can see the Meyer site. The main Meyer building is approximately 159,900 square feet. And the Meyer Express, the southeast of that, with a square footage of 3,000.
Could you identify the streets? I can't get oriented. Yeah.
Okay, they're to the southeast of Main Street and Stratavon.
Where is Main Street in Stratavon?
Main Street is to the east. And Stratavon is to the north.
Main Street,
That's Main Street. Thank you, that'll help.
Apple Grove, Stratton.
Access to the site from Applegate will remain on the south side. And there'll be 2 outlets formed there. You can see north of the gas station site, there's a Burger King that's to remain. And to the north of that, there's another outlet. This site plan does meet your code requirements. And basically parking for I think we went over the parking that's provided. On the south side of the Meyer site is a fenced-in garden area. Just to the east of that is a pharmacy drive-through with a concrete island that basically will serve as seasonal garden center sales. On the north side of the Meyer site is the service area. Basically, there's 6 truck docks with a compactor. To the east of that is grade level receiving. So that's where the smaller trucks come in and deliver items to the store. Just east of that is a smoking shelter and enclosed mechanical systems for the center. Just to the east of that is a curbside pickup for online orders, and that's something new that Meyer just started in the last year. On basically, you can go to the for Meyer, basically the traffic study, just to touch on that. The only thing it required was a signal at Stratavon. So Meyer has committed to put in that signal, and we're doing improvements to Stratavon with our development. Mainly because we're also bringing utilities down it. And as we discussed before, we're going to have a regional detention basin just north of Stratavon. Existing grading for the site drains from south to north and northwest. So basically, we're keeping the same drainage pattern as existed, and of course, the stormwater detention basin will control the water to pre-existing conditions as it exits back onto Stratavon. This is just enlarged landscaping. Meyer does propose facade landscaping, which adds, character to the building and more aesthetic pleasing to the facade. That is some of the renderings. There's also landscaping proposed around the signage. So these are the elevations that also have been submitted to the city. There's basically two main entrances to the store. One for the dry goods section, which is labeled home, and the grocery section labeled fresh. See the landscaping facade, and on the west side of the building is the pharmacy, and the east side of the building is pickup. There's also a little night view, that skylight basically that raised entryways is a new added feature for Meyer. Again, there's gray tones to the building. It's a precast concrete with imprinted scoring to add character to the building. It's gray and bronze. And the gas station basically follows the same scheme. General heights of the building, so you know, the tallest part of the main building is 36 feet, and it steps down 6 feet at the entryway, and it steps down 29 feet being the center, and then it steps down to 24 feet and 22 feet, 6 inches as it wraps around the back of the building. The gas station is approximately 22.5 feet at the entryway that's raised, and 15 foot 10 inch around the normal perimeter. This is a just isometric view of the site, the main building, what it'll look like looking southwest from Stratavon. And you can see the outlot and signage. Basically, Stratavon, like I said, will be improved with new paving. There will be a water main. We'll get to that when we see the utility plan, but it will dead end at the end of the Meyer site. And there is a portion of that remnant parcel that Meyer will not be developing at the back of the site. You can probably see it on the very first slide, but there, just west of the dark green area, that is all vacant land that will remain. There will also be landscaping as shown. So, and we feel it does meet the planning code. And the last thing I just want to touch on, just so it's clear. Site plan just in black and white. Then the grading plan, which we talked about. And then the utility plan. And this is just highlighted to show the existing water lines, which are on Stratavon, Main Street, and Applegate. Will be connecting with a main from Stratavon down to the connection point midway in the site, just behind the previous Kmart that was raised. So it's 18-inch on Applegate, and it's a 8-inch on Stratavon. We're proposing an 8-inch, but we are in the or 10-inch loop through the site. But we are still doing a water study if there's the need for a water pump house. It will be in that service area. Probably 8x10 enclosure. Sanitary will be extended from Main Street. It's the green line you see at the north end of the site. And it comes down the Stratavon and turns west, just behind the outlots in the drive. It'll come all the way down to service the drive, and there'll be basically a leg to the west to connect to the Meyer site. So there are mainline utilities proposed for the entire development, and as we talked about before, the gas station will have service for water on Main Street, and they will tap into the sanitary main that's being extended for the main Meyer site. I think that's all I have to present. You want to add anything?
No, we're happy to answer any questions.
Question, that parcel you mentioned to the left of the Meyer building, the
192.
the buffer between the residential property, the Meyer is maintaining that?
No, I don't think they will own it, will you? It remains to remain. I
So
think it's owned by
the city owns it?
City owns.
the city.
Yeah, that's city retained property, and we'll do, I think between us and the city, we'll like to do some enhancements to that parcel, perhaps fill in some low areas with some clean fill material, because we'll have some extra material. So do some enhancement to it, but pretty much leave it in its natural state for the most part. And it can act as a buffer from the residences, or it could be for the future of city development.
Okay. At this time, I entertain comments from the city before we get into any more questions commission members have.
Thank you. Staff has conducted a pre-application meeting in accordance with the ordinance, and Meyer has presented themselves as a responsible developer and have addressed each of the comments that have been presented in this pre-application meeting, any conversations leading up to the submittal today. Staff does find that the project is consistent with the zoning code and meets the intent of the zoning code, therefore recommends an approval with 5 conditions. I would like to read those 5 conditions. The first one being provide an approval on the traffic impact study from the city engineer. Incorporate all conditions and recommendations from the final traffic study as approved by the city engineer. I would like to note with that condition, as indicated earlier, we have received the traffic impact study yesterday. It is currently being reviewed. This condition would allow staff to complete that review. Condition number 2, stormwater quality / quantity plans to be submitted for review and approval by Stark Soil and Water prior to any site work. Condition number 3, provide a recorded and fully executed Mylar copy of the recorded plat reflecting the minimum 5-acre parcel for the conditional use permit as per Ordinance 24-2022. Number 4, provide a wetland delineation study prior to the issuance of the building permits and incorporate any required mitigation. Number 5, provide a conditional use permit for the proposed gas station with the completion of the primary use in accordance with North Canton Ordinance 1123.04, parent C. And I'd like to note on that, the ordinance does require the primary use to be completed before the accessory use. It does not restrict planning commission to issuing the conditional use permit similarly. Therefore, I don't see any prohibition in the ordinance that would preclude planning commission on moving forward on the conditional use permit, subject to this condition, particularly 1123.04, parent C. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Martin. Any other comments from the city before we move to commission members? Okay, at this time, any questions from commission members? Check my notes here, if nobody else has anything. Okay. No questions so far? At this time, we will open it up to comments from the audience. We would ask, in light of the late meeting, that we do keep our comments to a 3 to 5 minute maximum time limit. I know some things have already been discussed earlier, but if anyone else would like to get up and discuss about the general development plan at this time, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and we'll give you your due time.
Chuck Osborne, 307 Fairview Street, Southeast, North Canton, Ohio. Appreciate you being a little flexible in your time. There's a lot of issues here. City of North Canton has generally opposed gas stations on Main Street for 20 years, since I was on council in 2001. About 15 years ago, Acme contemplated a gas station at their existing facility, but they were discouraged, so it never moved forward. That's my understanding. A gas station is not an accessory use. It's a use in itself. So we're playing games here with nomenclature. This entire development will change the entire character of the whole northern portion of the city. It's a very nice development. This deserves a standalone location in and of itself. It will overwhelm and discourage and cause a decline in all the businesses in the entire area. And I'm not even going to address the traffic. You got people who want to go to the pharmacy, who want to go to the grocery store, who want to go to the gas station, in addition to the gas station that's already there. The McDonald's is already there. This is going to introduce chaos and overburden the city in that area. Regarding the contamination, can we go back to that previous screen where it showed the color? Oh, he's setting that up. Contamination has been known. Well, I'll personally say this. 3 parcels were bought initially. 10-acre Kmart property, 15-acre Stratavon property, and then the 5 acres we were just last talking about. The 5 acres, you were just inquiring about, heavily mined property. It's useless. I spoke personally with the owner at the time when I was on council. He told me you couldn't build back there. You'd need pylons to support any structures back there. So it's a worthless piece of property. It does provide a buffer for the neighborhood, and I think they're happy about that. The state has been aware of the contamination of her since 1970. It's a former Hoover dump site. They've dumped plating waste all in those mines for years and years. There are significant environmental issues up there. I'm troubled that we have an out-of-state proposed property owners dictating the laws of North Canton. As was pointed out earlier by the attorney, a year ago, we rezoned that entire area, May of last year, I think it finally passed. You keep flip-flopping on what we want and what we don't want. We have not wanted gas stations for 20 years. We have a few that are grandfathered on South Main. This is not purely a competitive situation. We have used in excess of $5.1 million that brought us to this point. And the city doesn't even want this. They wanted salaried jobs. And they pursue this by calling it land banking. Land banking is when municipalities acquire a property for little or no cost because it has deteriorated to the point that it's worthless. We have gone out and competed in the commercial real estate market and found ourselves in a mess now. It's a hot potato. They just want to unload it and they will sell it to anybody. Why do we need another Meyer? You've got another one, a super center, I don't know, 3 to 5 miles away. My wife and I did a walkthrough when it first opened. It's a nice store. But we have nice stores in North Canton. You have Acme, you have Giant Eagle, you have Marks. You're going to destabilize the entire retail area in North Canton, create traffic issues. So, as you can probably tell, I am not in favor of this. It is not good for a small little town to have a big box store like this, move into town, and destabilize and cause a great decline for an equally sized piece of property. Because as Mr. Associated businesses have the whole east side decimated. You're simply trading a gas station or a grocery store from the east side, winding up with one on the west side. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne.
Nick Albrecht, President of Acton Fresh Market, 4100 Druid Drive, Acton. I wanted to thank the Mayor, thank the Planning Commission for listening to us this evening. And I want to know that Acme takes our business very seriously. We don't take anything for granted and continue to do our best in the North Canton community in the future, as best as we can do it. Thank you very much for your time tonight, and I'll see you in the store.
Any other comment from the public? Okay, any additional questions from the commission members or members from the city? Okay, at this time, I would entertain a motion on, sorry, my paperwork all mixed up. This time I would entertain a motion on application number 22 NCPC-008 Wolpert Inc. at 1445. And I did want to make a clarification on this. There's 1445 and 1505 are the two parcels in question here. 1445 and 1505, North Main Street, North Canton, Ohio, the general development review for a new Meyer store and gasoline station.
Going to add the 5 conditions.
Yes, we would, on any motion, we would add the 5 conditions that Mr. Van Gundy laid out. Number 1, the traffic, and being brief with these, number one, the traffic study, number two, the stormwater quality quantity plans, number three, the recorded plat as one parcel, number four, the wetland delineation study, and number five, the conditional use permit for the gas station.
Make the motion as stated.
Could you clarify that, Tom? The motion to approve
No, I'm sorry, yeah.
With the
Motion to
condition.
approve
with the five
the
conditions.
condition.
I would second the motion to approve with the five conditions as stated by Mr. Van Gundy. We have a motion and a second, so at this time, we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. LePage,
Yes.
Mr. Mendelson,
Yes.
Mr. Galbese,
Yes.
Mr. Sarah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I would make a motion to adjourn our meeting for the evening.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.